Hi, everyone. This is Ryan Smith. I'm joined by Ivan Rupnik and Tyler Schmetterer. This is ModX Network Voices, where we interview folks in the offsite and modular construction space to try and produce more affordable and accessible housing at quality. Today, we have some guests, Jared Levy and Gordon Stott, as well as their partner, Greg Leung, and they're from Connect Homes. They're going to share with us a little bit about what they've been working on. We'll have a Q&A session as usual. And with that, welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining ModX Voices.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Great.
Greg, I think you were going to share some slides here and introduce the company, or maybe Jared was, maybe all three. So go right ahead and share with us what you've been working on. That'll give a background to our discussion.
Great. I'm Greg Leung, CEO of Connect Homes. I'm going to quickly pass it off to Jared and Gordon, co-founders of Connect Homes, to tell the story about how the company got started. So Jared, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So yeah, I'm Jared, co-founder of Connect Homes and chief product officer. And I was trained as an architect, really focused on single family homes, modern homes throughout my career, and got frustrated with the industry pretty early on. You know, I saw it as this bespoke one-off process that really, you know, every home was essentially like reinventing the wheel. So there's a lot of wasted resources embedded in the process. And it also, we're kind of getting to the point more and more where no one can even afford to custom build and design a new house. So I saw like this huge demand for modern homes, but yet no one could really afford the conventional process. So I was frustrated, and in 2004, I was asked to help launch Marmol Radziner Prefab. Marmol Radziner was a high-end design build firm that I'd worked with in the past, off and on throughout the years. And they wanted to start a prefab side to the company. So they kind of brought me in to help launch it. So what we're seeing here on the screen is one of the homes we did. You know, we did really high-end, modern, custom homes, probably the most complicated homes ever built in the factory. And it was amazing. Like, you know, we got tons of press. We had the first prefab home featured in GQ magazine. We were really part of like that first wave of modern prefab back in 2004 or 5 when Dwell magazine came out. And so we were really at the forefront. Had our homes featured in Architectural Digest, on the covers of Dwell multiple times. And it was amazing, but I think what we were seeing is that we were really operating in the same niche market of conventional construction, where we were serving high net worth individuals, where everything was custom, where everything was high end. And even though we were building in a factory, you know, it still was all custom. It still was essentially a one-off process. Now we're just doing it in a warehouse rather than on site. And, you know, it's not like that's going to be any cheaper if you're going to do something that's completely custom in a warehouse versus on site. So I think we saw, once again, at least for me, no one could afford what I was doing. And so I found that pretty frustrating. And so, you know, while Gordon was working with me at the time at Marmol Radziner, and we were seeing, you know, every year, like thousands of people seeing our homes, wanting them. And we realized they just had to be at a more affordable price point to really reach that broader market and that broader demand, and to really have an impact. You know, like some of the homes we were doing at Marmol Radziner, they were amazing, but, you know, they were for like the CEO of MGM Grand Casinos. And, you know, it's like Gordon and I didn't really get into prefab to offer up a cheaper way for the CEO of MGM Grand to get a house. Glad he could get a cheaper house, but that's not why we went into prefab. So we left Marmol Radziner prefab probably in like 2009. And then really focused on a few things as we were rethinking kind of what we wanted to do. And, you know, I like to think about it like we probably, when we left Marmol Radziner prefab, we probably knew more about modern prefab homes than just about anyone else. And we could have slapped together a website, put some renderings up and said, oh, now we're Connect Homes. But we we really wanted to try and get it right. And so we spent a lot of time thinking through all the different aspects of prefab and trying to learn from what we did at Marmol Radziner. And I think the three things we really focused on, which we're going to touch on throughout the conversation, I'm guessing, is we realized we needed to turn the house into a product. We need to standardize the design. Once you have kind of standardized the design or standardized different models, then you can really develop an assembly line process to manufacture it. So you're not just kind of custom building a home in a warehouse, you actually have an assembly line and you can build efficiently and drive down costs. And then the other aspect was, once you can build at scale, you need a way to cost effectively now deliver it. And so one of the stumbling blocks at Marmol Radziner Prefab and for the industry overall was, we were essentially building the biggest modules we could put on the road, because that optimized our factory. But then, we had a customer in the Hamptons who wanted one of our homes, and it's going to cost like $400,000 to ship the house cross country. So we realized, to scale, you can either build a factory in every market you want to serve, which is essentially like the Clayton Homes model or the kind of the lower end model, or you can develop a system that can cost effectively be delivered from one factory. And so that's what Gordon and I did. We spent a lot of time writing a patent and coming up with a patented system that allows our modules to ship intermodally on the intermodal network. And so those were the three things we really wanted to tackle really before even launching Connect Home. So I guess you could go to the next slide, Greg. And so that's kind of what we set out to do. And we really, the kind of goal is to really develop a system that can make modern homes accessible for everyone, and not just high net worth individuals, not just offering them as an alternate solution to getting a new house, but really focus on opening up a whole market that can afford the conventional process and has been priced out of building a new home. And so this is a house we did in Los Angeles. It's an urban infill lot. Like most of our models are designed for standard kind of 50-foot wide lots. Like we do second homes in, beautiful places in Sonoma and Lake Tahoe. But, our focus is really on giving people primary residences, new homes that they can afford in urban infill conditions. And so this has like an ADU carport in the front, and then there's a courtyard, and then the main house is in the back. And we were excited that we this year won the San Francisco Design Week for residential design, which was super cool to us because, normally the winner of that award is like some crazy $20 million home designed in Napa. And here, like, a $1 million home for an urban lot in LA won the award. So that was pretty gratifying. So should we go to the next slide? So yeah, we standardized the product. So we have 14 different models. You can move the windows and doors around, so you can customize it. It's always trying to find the right blend of standardization and customization, because really, like, this is the most expensive purchase our customers are ever going to make. And it's called the dream house for a reason. They've kind of always envisioned certain things in their homes. And so we wanted a system that's adaptable to those needs, but still standardized so it can go down the factory and run on an assembly line. And so you can move windows and doors around because we have a moment frame, steel frame module. And so none of the walls are load bearing. So if the V is to one side, we can put all the windows on one side. If you want privacy on that side, we can make it a solid wall. Maybe good. And then we can also add accessories. So you can add like covered decks, you can add garages, you can add carports. So there's all these different ways where you can take our standard model and then really tweak it and customize it and tune it for a specific site. So like here's a Connect 2 with an upgraded kind of door system that kind of all pockets to one end. And then there's a covered deck on the outside of that. And then, yeah, Gordon, if you want to like jump in on any of these, feel free. I've cut you out.
You're doing great,
Sorry.
Jim. Yeah, no.
So then you could also do like double height space, so you can, leave the floors off the second story modules. And then you can end up with like, double height space in your public area. And again, like, so it's all about really taking just good modern design, like seamless transitions from inside to outside, tons of natural light, and do it in a way where like, people can actually afford it. And, we can actually build it at scale. You
Yeah,
want to go to the next slide?
Just to add to one thing that Jared was saying about that steel moment frame. Yeah, I think from a kind of productization standpoint, one of the breakthroughs that we've had is that, maybe you don't need to spend, all that time creating the dream kitchen or the dream bathroom or the dream this or that, or custom tailoring the interior to a client's needs, which again, I think that maybe the site built industry, has this sort of myth of the dream home that we all want to kind of like participate in, because that's what you do when you build something, is you sort of make it your dream, and making your dream means that you get to kind of comment on what your perfect bathroom or perfect kitchen is. But in a weird way, somewhat like modernism and the modern aesthetic, and certainly steel moment frames, point towards a situation in which maybe you don't give people that opportunity to customize. Maybe you let them choose the materials they want in their bathroom or the materials in their kitchen. So you give them sort of minimal customization on the interiors, and then, yeah, potentially the exterior of the building and how it relates to the site. As long as you can kind of change how the modules relate to the site, you can essentially make any standard plan appropriate for almost any site, assuming it fits between, within zoning setbacks and all that stuff. So productization is actually about providing this limited ability for the house to adapt to its site. And that becomes the most important part of the customization process.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think all that comes with, you have to offer a real value proposition to the customer. So if you're going to tell them, no, we can't make that kitchen island 3 feet longer and 2 feet wider, there's a whole host of reasons why we can't. Then, if they can afford to kind of custom build and go to an architect and get that island exactly the way they want it, that's cool. They can make that choice. But we're reaching people like that last picture we were looking at, where they were living in a tiny old home with their family was too large for it, and they couldn't afford to hire an architect and custom build. And yet they got that house. And they got like a perfectly good island, right? Like it's a huge island, but so there are lines that you draw, and we can draw these lines because we're really building at half the cost of conventional construction. And so there's a real value proposition for us. So yeah, if you go to the next slide was like the courtyard that we did. And so we offer different finishes. You can have cement board siding, wood siding, metal siding. So again, like we have a kit of parts that you can upgrade and really kind of personalize your home, but it's still kind of based on the standard kind of designs. Maybe next slide. So yeah, I can now transition to, I think it was about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago where I think Gordon and I saw that we had, it took a certain mindset and a certain skill set to get the company to where it was. And it was really product driven, right? Everything we did was product driven in terms of saying no to multifamily because we're developing a solution for single family, right? Stay focused on the product, learn what's working in the field because we do the installation ourselves. We don't have a local GC do it. So since we do it ourselves, take that feedback, have that feedback inform design, inform what's happening in the factory. And, so many decisions have to be made, judging and kind of weighing what's the quickest in the field, what's the cheapest, but what still looks good, what's sustainable. And so, we had built something that was really, we thought, scalable. Like, hey, I think, we're really onto something. We're building a house every 6 days right now. We can go way faster. We can deliver nationwide, we've standardized things. And so we saw that we had a real scalable platform. And I think we also saw that that's a different skill set and a different set of experience to now scale something into something big. It's one thing to build something. It's another thing to scale something. And so that's when we went on a search for a new CEO, and we were really happy to find Greg, who we can now introduce himself.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, so I met Jared and Gordon last year, and was just, having spent my career building and scaling really complex global operations of cutting edge consumer products, was just blown away by the vision, the product itself, and this vision around making the home a product, which to me means something that is tailored to the end customer experience, the end user experience, but is also able to be done replicably at scale. And so, just by way of introduction, my background is around supply chain and operations, growing and scaling. I joined Apple in 2002, the year the very first iPod shipped and the very first retail stores opened, when it was a little $6 billion, 1% market share niche PC company, and had the incredible fortune to be there for 12 years during that period of the company's exponential growth, where the iPhone was first launched, where the transition to Intel-based processors occurred on the Mac, where the iPad was launched. And through that course of time, led worldwide supply chain planning and supply demand management up to the point where the company was $200 billion. And so from an operational and supply chain standpoint, which I think is always relevant, maybe less appreciated than in the past than it is today, because of all the supply chain challenges that we're seeing across the world. Orchestrating, managing, optimizing, and growing operations like this is what I love doing. It's what I've done. I've launched many dozens of iconic products. Had to solve things as mundane as why DCs aren't able to ship product because something broke in the system that we have no idea, to how to figure out how to get enough NAND flash to support multi-year product roadmaps. So did that for 12 years, and then as the company reached that sort of more stability, decided to go into an earlier stage company and got a taste of what it's like to build really high technology products and try to make them fit into old homes that are not high tech. And so I was chief operating officer of a smart home company called Otto, built a very sophisticated, very advanced deadbolt, consumer deadbolt. You can see in the bottom right hand picture, and really enjoyed doing that. Did that for 3 years, and then met Jared and Gordon. And so I'm super excited to be part of this team and to be figuring out how to scale the company to this next phase. And just to make it totally clear, this is not a story of, and I would highly caution against anyone thinking that just because you've been able to be successful in Silicon Valley means you can do it for a house, because how much a house is simpler than an iPhone, therefore it's got to be easy. That's completely wrong, completely flawed, and that's not what's going on here at all. This is really a case of recognizing that you have to have both a compelling product and figure out how to build a house that people actually want to live in at a price that they can actually afford, and scale it. And so that's why the three of us are on this call. It's because you need all three things, all of those aspects. Just to kind of move on quickly to some more aspects of the company. So as Jared mentioned, we build on an assembly line at scale, currently outputting a home, or the equivalent of a home in terms of modules, every 6 days from our facility in San Bernardino. We've divided up the work across workstations. We have where, to be clear, people stay in the same spot, materials move through it. We have very rigorous quality control set up by our leader of manufacturing, who was born in the world of Toyota manufacturing. Real-time feedback whenever issues are found. The trade that finds the issue tells the trade that caused the issue, who's sitting right next to them, in real time. We got to fix this, so we're able to continuously improve. We can deploy technology really efficiently because we have the throughput, and the homes ship 90% complete, which means that minimizes on-site assembly. And so this is a view of one of our Connect 8s 2,600 square foot home in Malibu. It's a fire rebuild. And what you're seeing is the first floor, four mods, a set, and the first mod of the second story set. So this is about 10 in the morning. Setting started that morning. It was done by lunchtime. And you can see just visually that what we're shipping is highly complete. It has level 4 finished drywall, doors and windows, HVAC, fire sprinklers, exterior siding. You can't see this, but tile, backsplashes, countertops, cabinetry, plumbing, all of that's done. And that's critical because minimizing the work on site is essential for making this efficient and quality controlled and also less expensive. So that is the prepared section, and I'd love to turn it back over for some discussion.
Greg, can you just show it? Oh, great, that's fine. Maybe we can unshare the screens if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, great. So thank you guys for a really insightful intro into Connect Homes. We've been lucky enough to follow you guys for some time. You're not new to the industry. So maybe to start a conversation, we as ModX, we've had a hard time making the case to the US industry for what you call productization, what we call product platforms. We found that, for example, the McKinsey report was very good at telling everyone that offsite would make more efficient, cost-effective housing or other kinds of products, but it took for granted this kind of important conceptual step, which is the idea of balancing standardization and customization. So what we've seen is either modular factories, established modular factories who don't work up or downstream, but also who don't develop product platforms to really actually build in a factory a custom building. Or we've seen Katerra, which on the other side of the spectrum, which we have to say is understood the principles of the product platform in a similar way to the way that you did, but decided to do it so quickly that it just created a very risky endeavor, even though we think the principles are very sound. And in fact, a company like yours verifies many of them. So I guess, just to start the conversations, what is, you've hinted on it, but what is the value of a product platform? It's what you started with. It's really what you invested in. It's what you've been very disciplined about maintaining, and it's evolved. And what have been the challenges of being so disciplined of maintaining a product platform as you've grown, as you've acquired your own factory, as you've increased your supply chain, as you've gradually become a more integrated company, but with a product platform approach from day one?
Do you want me to take that?
Whoever wants to start, yeah.
Go for it,
Yeah, well,
Jared.
I think, we launched with essentially like 4 models, standard models. And, so potential customers would come to us and they'd say, I've got a 25-foot wide lot, none of your models fit on it. What can you do? And so, we would essentially custom design a model that would work for that, right? Because if there was a need, which clearly there was, and we didn't have a model that worked, we then designed a model that would work for that need. And so it was great because our product library was essentially launched through kind of real customers coming to us with real programs and real needs, and us seeing that, oh yeah, we don't have a product that works for that. Let's do that. And I think we got to the point where we were starting to set up the assembly line. We started to have enough models that really kind of worked for now anyone that came to us. We had a big lot, a small lot, a narrow lot. You need 1 home, 2 homes, 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. So we saw that, I think we have a product library that's really meeting most of the user cases, the use cases. And what we also saw is, I think like one of the last custom homes that we agreed to do was about to go down the assembly line. And because we had just set up the assembly line, we were really starting to set up all the processes and controls it takes to run an assembly line. And then, this custom home was marching down the line and it just kept stopping the line because there's a new detail, or like, there's like, the roof, we had a roof deck and we'd never done the roof deck this way, and we didn't have the sleepers worked out. And so the framers weren't going to know what to do. And you just quickly saw how customization does not work for homes on an assembly line, right? Because to build a house every 6 days, everything needs to be worked out. Everything needs to be procured in time. You can't have something missing. You can't have a window that you didn't get ordered in time. Everything needs to be thought through. All the details need to be worked. Every piece of framing needs to be accounted for. And when it's a custom home, that's hard to do every 6 days. You really can't do that. So I think we saw like, hey, we can't do custom models anymore. We have standard models that work for everything. And in these standard models, they're auto-generating like cut lists for the metal siding that we do and the trim profiles. And so much goes into kind of supporting a house being built every 6 days that you do something custom and it's all that other stuff that makes it so it's not going to be able to go down the assembly line.
And Jared, when you say custom, you're saying something outside of the product platform because your product platform is built for customization. So it's a framework that exists, right? You just discussed it. That last custom house, because these terms are a mess, right, for all of us.
Right.
That custom house didn't fit within your product platform.
Right.
And it was being customized like a conventional house during the documentation and production process. Whereas what you guys have done is built a framework, a game where there is customization. The customization happens in a controlled environment. Let's say it happens in a situation where the client feels like they're getting a design service, but you understand.
Yeah, I think
just to clarify that, because I think that language, we all have a hard time talking about this, and sounds like you guys are not doing, one-off. You're not doing one-off houses, but none of your homes are the same. I've never seen two Connect homes that are the same. And that's important. I think we need to make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would use the term fit out as opposed to maybe customization. I mean, as Jared was saying, like we launched 4 of those homes. We've built each one of those homes like, probably 15 times or more. And they're still sort of probably our most best selling homes. I think like one kind of thing that I always return to is that, anything that's accessible to the middle class or, anything that's well priced has almost by definition been built on an assembly line. And anything that's a bespoke process, and of course, like, Etsy sort of proves this somewhat incorrect, but at scale, any kind of like anything that's not built on an assembly line with a bespoke process, it has the potential of being very, very expensive. And so I think what we've figured out is that, in order to keep an assembly line full and humming and going at, the rate of a 2,000 square foot, 6 module house every 6 working days and hopefully faster, you have to be everything up chain from that. You have to be selling a house faster than that, houses faster than a rate of, 1 every 6 days. You have to be approving, you have to do engineering, you have to be going through design review faster. You have to be doing all it sort of like sets up an assembly line process, almost like up chain and down chain. And in order to kind of really have the fuel for an assembly line, you need to be selling standard products. And so the journey of getting there and to making the customization really more of a fit out, being that you can just sort of like change where the doors and windows go, but the floor plan remains the same. You can just change kind of like the material, interior, exterior materials, but essentially we have a kind of selection of those materials that you're likely going to choose. If you want something that's slightly outside of that, you'll have to pay more. It's really a process of how do you sort of get people back to the product page.
And the way,
Greg, well, how do you see this process?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is all very familiar, and whether we're talking about like the hundreds of thousands of different permutations of an iMac that you can order, or a Tesla, if you've gone online and ordered one, or gone online and pretended like you're ordering one, you go in and you choose, do you want what kind of fabric or upholstery or leather or pleather do you want, and what color do you want, what battery pack do you want, and what upgrades do you want? You can make it your dream car. I doubt many Tesla owners say like, I had to settle for this design because I couldn't get what I wanted. But you don't go in and say, I want it to be like 8 feet wide or 9 feet wide, or I want the steering wheel to be in the middle, or I want, something, I want 6 doors instead of 4 doors. You don't get those choices. You get a set of choices that make it highly customizable, that make it unique, that make it yours, but within guardrails. And that's just exactly what we're doing here.
And before the process starts, and once the customization is at a very clear point. That's what, for whatever reason, that story has not gotten to the AEC community. So that's, I think, a key difference. And people feel, when people walk away from the Tesla website or from actually a Japanese website that sells 15,000 homes a year, they feel like they've gotten a custom product. They feel like they've gotten their product, but they also feel like they've gotten value and predictability. And that's the magic. That's it. That's
right. Because if you were to go to Tesla and specify the width of the car, you'd come back 5 years later and pay $50 million for the car. Like it wouldn't work.
One more question here before we close out, if that's okay. And I think Greg can answer this certainly, and then look for Jared and Gordon. And that is, in productizing, in developing a product platform, based on your experience, Greg, in these other industries, production industries, what is the value of brand recognition, and what in getting customers and lining up those customers and building that brand, and what is the strategy Connect Homes has used and maybe will use in the future in ensuring that people understand what it is and the value of it? How do you communicate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this sort of goes to the difference between a product company and a technology company, or a product company and a construction company, or a product company and architecture company, which I would argue in the case of architecture, construction, technology are about that specific function, whereas a product company, and we are striving to be a product company, we're about the lived experience of the end user. What does it feel like to live in this home? What does it feel like to purchase the home, to purchase and build the home? What is the process? But we are very focused on solving the problems of homeowners, and that to me is that's our strategy, and that to me is how you really win in this space and deliver something that's an object that ignites mass desire, and that's what we're all about. And it's, I think, arguably what iconic product companies have done, whether it's Nike or Apple or Tesla or other places.
Yeah, I think that's definitely right. And why do everyone's always talking about Tesla, and we don't talk about Ford or all those other car manufacturers. And I think what Tesla's done is they've really kind of created a brand and a lifestyle and a community around their car, around what they're selling. And I think that's kind of the roadmap or the blueprint that we look to them for is, how do you do that where people really feel a sense of community and a change in their lifestyle if they can own and build a Connect Homes. And so I think it's super cool because we have like customers who want like plaques outside their homes on the fence saying like, this is Connect Homes number 17 or whatever. Like that's the kind of, and that's what we need to build on. And we just hired a chief brand officer who came from Sonos, and again, like we recognize how important that is, how important that community and that lifestyle is to kind of what we're doing and to the brand.
Yeah, thank you. Tyler, did you have a question to wrap it up?
I did. I mean, what you guys are doing is terrific. I think we can all agree on that. I'm specifically just really curious about your sustainability culture, your orientation, specifically what you're doing to execute sustainability, how you measure it, performance, what you guys are doing to push the envelope in that space, and how important is that for your base, your customer base?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to just some of the metrics involved. So, for us, it's really hard to kind of, or it's sort of Jared's point about how we're all talking about Tesla and not about Ford and all of that stuff. But like somehow just the process of bringing kind of like late 19th century industrialized manufacturing techniques and to an industry that's insanely wasteful is, for me, really kind of the cornerstone of all of this, in that, as measured in terms of dumpsters, we're producing 60% less waste than sort of average ground up residential construction. As modules move down the line, again, we have basically one recessed light that we use on all of our homes. We use, all the same materials, finishes, products, and details kind of system wide. And so, we're really sort of buying in order to kind of like aid the creation of standardized products that ends up sort of cutting down on the waste and really sort of increasing efficiencies in ways that are kind of not even measurable when measuring against sort of like typical green building metrics, which again already presuppose an insanely wasteful bespoke construction industry that essentially is so under optimized that a lot of the green building metrics I end up feeling are sort of just in a way trying to almost like rationalize those inefficiencies, if that makes any sense. And so for us, it's really exciting to see when if we if a recess can doesn't get used on one module, you sort of wait a day, the module sort of moves and you install it on the next module, if that makes sense. And kind of like resource optimization that happens at the center of industry that again is just completely missed in standard construction. And so I end up feeling quite passionately about that. But again, I oftentimes I feel like I'm a crazy man running out in his underwear howling at the moon or whatever, you know what I mean? I don't
Certainly
know.
that aligns with the European, what we've seen, for example, in the European Union, where now there's a push to take the Apple and Samsung and say you need to have the same charger for all of these products, because that's actually going to have a bigger impact than all kinds of energy efficiency criteria for individual buildings. So thinking about the entire process seems like a really interesting thing to see, and that's something we've also seen in Japan through regulations, but also pushed by industry, where offsite companies have pushed for lobbied for the entire construction industry to be responsible for waste as a way to actually distinguish themselves and put everybody on the same playing field. So
that's amazing. Yeah. That's really
so because actually what the discussion we just had about brand and what Tyler brought out about sustainability, it's all about lifestyle, right? And it's all about creating actually a genuine experience that within which a product and actually a service as well, because you guys are still you come from architecture. Having an ability to provide a service as well as a product is really the key. That's how you distinguish yourselves from spec builders, right?
Well, and again, not to measure something that's not measured because it's too embarrassing to measure. But ultimately, when a client wants a new house, they hire an architect, they give them a budget. That house is going to take a year and $100,000 in order to get through design, engineering, approvals, bid. At which point in time, potentially, like it's going to turn out the house is going to cost twice what the client thought it was going to cost in order to build. At which point in time, the client's going to be left with $100,000 stack of paper that isn't worth anything, and like also will have lost a year of their lives. And essentially, like the first meetings that we're having with a client, we're showing them what it's going to cost to build their prefab house, if that makes any sense. And so there's this clarity of process that again, I think just points towards like, we're just really sort of only scratching the surface if we're talking about, as we all know intuitively, building anything is so difficult. There's so much resource involved in it. Being able to kind of tangibly streamline that is really, really fun.
Yeah, I think to make this conversation really like complete, you need to also look at, it's building individual houses sustainably is one thing, but being able to cost effectively replace, like think of this as, so there are 40% of homes in the United States were built before 1969, before Title 24, 77% of them are not well insulated. They're horribly energy inefficient, to say nothing of how uncomfortable they are to live in. By the way, in California, it's closer to 70%. The problem is there's technology. We have the technology to make homes efficiently. You can't deploy that in this install base of 39 million inefficient homes unless you're able to actually go in and sort of do the mother of all retrofits, which is replace the home. And so, great technology is not helpful if it's a concept and it's just an R&D. We're able to go and actually, because of the efficient process, replace homes with much more efficient ones and do it efficiently in the process. And to me, that the impact of what we're doing, you have to look at it from that context. It's not about one-off. You have to actually address the supply problem and the install base problem. And so that's where the scale piece comes into play, and that's why it matters so much.
Great. And I think that really resonates with much broader societal changes than anything that's just construction or even the offsite industry. So I think it's a really good spot to start at. So thank you guys for joining Modex Voices. And again, we're going to have a broader discussion around California at another date. And so we'll continue this conversation here. And we hope to bring the Modex network to connect homes as soon as we possibly can. Thank you all. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ivan. Thanks, Tyler.